Here we have the Sonata C major, opus 53 of Beethoven. It is the Waldstein Sonata, nicknamed after the person it was dedicated to, which was Count Ferdinand von Waldstein, who himself was a very interesting character. He had supported Beethoven throughout his early years in Bonn, sending him to Vienna to study with Haydn in order to gain the spirit of Mozart. Obviously a great connoisseur of the piano. He himself fought Napoleon at great length and joined the British Army. And reading about him, he also served in India in the British Army. He left in 1812 and became very impoverished, dying, I believe, 1824. Not a very successful career in terms of his accomplishments monetarily, but certainly Beethoven felt so strongly about him that he dedicated this revolutionary sonata. The sonata is interesting on many levels. I think the influence of the Erard piano, which is quite unknown in Beethoven's history. Haydn had received in 1801 an Erard sent to him from Paris, and Beethoven thought so highly of the instrument that he ordered one in August of 1803. So the qualities of the Erard, which was a French instrument with an English accent, I think were particularly noticeable in this particular sonata. And the colors, the pianistic colors especially, are so extraordinary. The use of the repetition, the use of the tremolo, and certainly the pianissimo sound, which Beethoven really exploits in this particular sonata, and of course the use of the pedal, which we will go on into later on. But I find the work, it's one of his most famous sonatas, and rightly so. I believe that it is often played much too fast because there's so much music going on that rushing through it does not make a lot of sense to me. So I will play a bit of it, and we will begin with this. And hopefully you may or disagree with the tempo, but I think the very fast tempo does not serve this sonata very well. So here is the way I would play it. Truly playing this much faster, and very often is played with it. And then it is slowing down when you get to the second theme. Which I object to. I believe that there should be one mean tempo with flexibility in all the the freedoms of interpretation. But I really think that this tempo does not need to be faster. And I don't think the rushing serves the piece. Certainly it's Allegro con brio, and I think the con brio can certainly be held in the excitement of the tension that you have. Let me show you once again. A relaxed wrist, not letting the keys rise too highly, using the undercorte pedal, and playing with a very deliberate sort of orchestral with a short bow of the string. And one of the things that is so important is the motive. He has a breve, and the eighth note, and then the quarter note. And that is constantly repeated, and it becomes a very strong motive in the piece. So. So what is completely revolutionary, of course, is going down the whole step and starting the theme over again in a new key. Quite extraordinary. Also, the use of the half step is always being used. And then he repeats it with the tremolo. So the beautiful rotation, and don't forget, you cannot let the keys come up. You have to sort of play the pianissimo, very lightly, and get the direction of the sound as well as to being mechanical. Get it? So you always have a direction and a beautiful, elegant kind of melody. The melody is constantly being reinforced. He goes from the A minor, using the Phrygian relationship, into B major. Once again, if it's so fast, you lose the whole melodic content of this music. And you don't need a lot of pedal either. Going into his B major. Setting up actually his big second theme, which is an E major. He goes from C major to E major. It's not very common in a major C major composition, but revolutionary for Beethoven. Gorgeous with the decrescendo, the staccato, and how he breaks up the rhythm. He doesn't do it in any kind of conventional way, but breaks it up. And be sure, lead yourself into the... So I personally object to a very slow, which is conventionally done, where it's practically half the tempo of the beginning of the piece. I don't really feel it's necessary to do that, and my dolce is very legato, and what is also rarely done is the sforzando, which is also part of the theme. Crescendo. The crescendo is also rarely done, and with the subito piano. And what most people do is they pound out the theme in the left hand, which is also extremely beautiful, but it's also known. We've heard it before, but what is extremely beautiful is the obbligato soprano triplet. And this triplet figuration becomes very melodic in transition into the E major. Beautiful sense of the diminuendo, and he goes from the triplet to the semiquavers. Gorgeous. Of course, he goes from the to his A major, fortissimo, and this is usually terribly played in a hysterical manner, which I think is not important to the music. I think it should be held. And once again, the use of the pianissimo becomes all the way down here. Pianissimo. So what you need is a completely articulate finger technique and a strong left hand, which is very clear. I also think the use of the pedal in the previous theme and then coming off at that particular point. But I like thematically. A lot of people play it dryly. For my taste, it's much too dry, and I think Beethoven certainly would have enjoyed the use of the pedal. Once again, we go up. And if this is played too fast, it's also lost its charm. The beautiful melodic line. And it takes time to express the forte piano. Of course, he's in E minor. Now, how do you go from E minor? What do you do at that point? Yeah. C major, coming back, but in order to continue at the end of the exposition into his development section, he uses this motive over and over and over again, which is quite extraordinary. And once again, it takes time. If people are playing so fast, they never really express, and I've rarely heard it beautifully done, the subito piano, which is constantly being used here. And once again, I don't really believe that you get to this theme and you go up, which I've often heard. To me, it divides up the piece. I think there is a possibility of doing it within one tempo with all the flexibilities and all the freedoms. And I think you can do this. And if you slow the tempo, the original tempo down slightly, you're able to really fit it all together into one tempo. And that's my belief in terms of interpreting this music. And usually people take a very, very big retard here. to me, to suddenly speed up there disturbs the entire sense of the form. And once again, dum dum with the quaver or the eighth note and the quarter note. And that becomes very, very dramatic later on in the piece. But this motive is constantly being used. With the crescendo, which is so dramatically. Once again, you need the tremolo. With a very relaxed hand and the rotary of the wrist, which is so important. And how you do the right hand, of course. Once again, the choreography of the hand expresses the music. Moving into the thumb. So clearly, the hand and the use of the hand is how Beethoven is actually expressing this music. It's very clear, and the genius of the piano and the pianists coming into one. The use of the hand in a very expressive manner. And then traditionally taking pedal there, which I think is extremely beautiful, going into the pianissimo, the color of it. Starting F minor, D flat major. Absolutely gorgeous, how he transforms the motive. It becomes... Once again, returning actually to his C major, which really doesn't feel like a tonic chord because he hasn't really given you any kind of a dominant chord to create a sense of recapitulation. So this is all part of the scale of the development section. And of course, this motive is part of his previous motive, and he takes this and executes a phenomenal range of harmonic chromaticism, which you will hear, which is extraordinary, and Beethoven being the great developer of the development section. You'll see how he does this. Here, let's go on. Repeating the motive. Finally arriving at his dominant. And of course, this is one of the great moments in music history, how he goes from his dominant to a very, very, very exciting recapitulation of his theme. And you see how he executes this from the theme. It's really a lesson in harmony. B flat major. Down to the pianissimo. using his famous in reverse. In reverse. Truly, truly genius. Once again, how he creates climax out of the motivic use, but it's not a consistent rhythmic count. It's not always constantly imaginative in its use. Once again, very, very, very close to the key. Here, how Beethoven, being the master pianist, uses the hand. How he uses the 3 fingers and the 4 fingers all at once in a relaxed manner. You don't actually even need to move the fingers. The hand will do it. The individual length of the fingers actually will play this. See that? You don't need to work the fingers at all. And here I use the strength of 4-3-2-1, 4-3-2-1 in the motive to actually get the greater amount of sound. Which actually gives me the strong rhythmic sense and the strong sense of creating the climax. Again, throwing you the curve, throwing you the fascinating use of the motive and constantly changing, the genius of the great composer. And here you have in Beethoven, he's giving you the half-step relationship, which should be heard, and usually it's over-pedaled, so you really don't hear it. And he goes back to his A-flat this time. The motives repeated with fermata, and you have the pianissimo, which also is vitally important that you actually play it totally different. And then he brings us in also pianissimo. Wonderfully, with a tight melody at the top voice. With the forte piano, beautifully executed. So here you have the so he goes up by steps. Yes. So if it's so fast, you lose it. This grazioso, which is so vital to this music. Of course, in order to go transition correctly into his second theme, he has to change his harmonies. And then with the crescendo. Now, I think this should not be pedaled. It is often pedaled, but it loses its clarity. It's a beautiful melodic line, and it should be played that way. The most beautiful chorale. Once again, I don't think you have to slow down a tremendous amount. Going up to the A major. And of course, pedaling this appropriately is so vitally important to make this absolutely as legato as possible and have that sense of the chorale. The staccato is with the wrist going up and down. And then the contrast to the legato. Now, these chords have to be beautifully voiced. And express. And do the crescendo. It's so wonderful. And then he goes into the A minor from the A major. And rarely is that crescendo to the subito done. Once again, do not race through this and keep this. And also this marvelous diminuendo that Beethoven gives you. Going up to the crescendo, yes? That beautiful pianissimo. Extraordinary. He's still not happy with his C major. He's not happy bringing you back. And towards the end of the piece, he actually will bring his second theme back in C major, which I will show you. But here he leads you into the Phrygian key, from the C major to the D flat major. This is where he uses this theme, and he gives you the subito forte. He loves that theme. Of course, going into his subito piano. But here the D flat major should actually be the same tempo as the opening of the piece. So that you had the so it is not just a sforzando, but the entire bar is forte. Of course, the sforzando, which is the genius of Beethoven, taking the motive and rhythmically vitalizing it. And you go into the thumb. Once again, the hand itself allows you to express the music. Two motives taking place at the same moment. And it's very clearly marked with the staccato. And you let the hand actually express the music. Going into the fifth finger. So you use the motive constantly. And not too much pedal. To actually get the clarity of the music. And here's finally Beethoven bringing you back the second theme in his C major, towards the very end of the piece. E major, he has it in A major, and finally he brings you back into C major. Constantly teasing you with the, and then the minor, and he's elongating it by doubling the bar. Very curiously, in the Liszt edition, Liszt does not like the subito piano. He carries this, he doesn't put the piano there, and then he does the subito pianissimo. Very curious, but that was Franz Liszt. Once again, the 4-3-2-1. Well, 4-3-2-1, 4-3-2-1. Which I think is the best fingering. It also is actually separates the notes perfectly and gives you the vitally important rhythm. Once again, I think the important part of this piece is that you do not play this so fast. And I think one of the things Schindler has written often about the Beethoven interpretations that he heard all through his life after Beethoven's death. And he thought everything was played too fast. But I find it... I don't believe that tempo serves the music. I think it's perfectly con brio if you slow it down and you keep some sort of constant tempo and do not distort these various beautiful things that are taking place. And there's ample time and ample expression to keep a mean tempo of some kind. All right, let's go on to the second movement. Well, now we come to the slow movement, which is fascinating because it was not the original slow movement of the Waldstein Sonata. It's the which of course was the Andante Favori. Beethoven's friends thought this movement was much too long and not a good transition into the last movement. So he reluctantly wrote a new movement, which was quite different from the Andante Favori. It is really a transcendental moment in music, and in some ways very dark and gloomy, but extremely, in a way, a completely different mood from the other movements. Transcendental in their nature and exploiting the middle and bottom range of the instrument in a very transcendental manner with a kind of dissonant participation of the tones, each tone being an identity of its own, with a dotted rhythm here. So the entire opening phrase is held together by the descending bass. And this motive, which has no clear motivation other than searching for a harmony. Where do I belong? It's kind of lost. In his F major. Very unique, very original. Quite extraordinary, and a very transcendental moment in the piece. He does return to a variation of this theme with a rinforzando, which is really a gorgeous melody, but it is accented and punctuated with sforzandi, which are not necessarily out of place, but more an emotional appeal to what he's trying to state. Dying down, and then a recitativo. passage is extremely interesting because he's filled with sforzandos and crescendos, and it takes a tremendous amount of time to actually express this appropriately. And once again, it's a very curious moment in Beethoven how he puts his agogic and his accents. They are sort of out of place, but they are dramatically created. This was sforzando, crescendo, the sforzando. The crescendo continues. Returning to his theme, but it's not the same. Crescendo. So instead of having his rests, he's having interjecting the motive and giving a commentary on the theme. Here. Instead of rest, with a crescendo to a pianissimo. Once again, the commentary. And here, elongating the whole passage. Once again, the master of the motive, how he builds upon his. Descending. Leading you into the beautiful C major of the pastoral theme of the last movement. It's hard to explain the drama that Beethoven creates with his dissonant A-flat G. Constantly doing this and then holding it. Changing it into a G sharp, the A flat, to the A minor, and then the 4, the 5, and then making the G dominant to the theme. Of course, the French call this the Aurore Sonata because of the landscape of this beautiful last movement in the theme. It's a very controversial last movement in the use of the pedal. I personally believe, as Schindler might have believed and has written about that, the modern piano really doesn't do justice to the clarity that is so necessary in making the theme as beautiful as possible. So there's a kind of partial, part-time pedaling throughout that might filter a bit the dissonance that you would have if you didn't lift the pedal at all. Let me show you, if you don't lift the pedal at all and you play it absolutely pianissimo, what how should I say, the impressionistic effect would be. Well, I'm not quite sure that would have pleased Beethoven, but you can get the same effect with perhaps not using quite as much pedal. So I think it's possible to, in a sense, have the best of both worlds. If you pedal very, very little fluttering with the cleaning it a little bit with your foot and listening very, very closely, you can get that beautiful pedaled effect that Beethoven obviously desired. Of course, you have the pianissimo. And I have struggled desperately to find a perfect fingering. I have never found a perfect fingering. What I do is I put my thumb under in order to do this. And I found that to the best effect. I've tried many, many other fingerings, but that's the one I use. I put the thumb under. Doing the crescendo. Doing the decrescendo. Back to the original theme. Of course, Beethoven writes this beautiful staccato in the pedal. He wants that Luft, that Viennese Luftpause. Gives a fantastic sound. Here, very clearly, Beethoven takes the pedal off. Sort of keeping the pedal off through the entire passage. And he wants that, the contrast, it's very clear that he wants that contrast from the here. No pedal, pedal, no pedal, subito piano, you have to get that also. Toying with the major and the minor. Once again, bringing you into the tremendous C major and the theme, and he ornaments it with the spectacular left hand, of which you cannot play too fast. It has to be absolutely clear. And here he has 2 bars of pedal, and then no pedal with the beautiful theme. But here. has the German country dance in the middle section, which is so wonderful, the offbeat. So not a great deal of pedal. Be sure to be creating the offbeat. And then you have, of course, these sforzandos, which are so vitally important. So all of this has to be pronounced, not too bombastic, always being musical. The technically, you have to have the rotary in the right hand. Straight fifth finger and the strength of the arm. And so on with the sforzando. Diminuendo down to the pianissimo. Once again, the sense of dynamic contrast that Beethoven creates. Here, this is fortissimo, piano, piano, diminuendo, subito forte, down to the pianissimo. Wonderful effect of the pedal, which he does, and of course you actually conduct this. With the legato. Wonderful effect of the pedal, and obviously using the colors of the instrument, being the superb pianist. Of course, coming back to his beautiful roar, his beautiful theme. So that the right hand, he writes it all legatissimo. So it shouldn't be notey, it should have that impressionistic effect. I think it's absolutely within the pianissimo and the color, this is exactly what Beethoven is striving for, a new level of color. Which I think is extraordinary, and I've not played it on his Nanette Streicher piano or even on the old Erard, which he had in his possession at the time, but I am sure that the use of the pedal and the color that he is striving for is equally as beautiful on that piano as it is on the modern instrument. I think this is vitally important that you hear the masterful pianist and the great artist of the piano in this particular sonata. He's always known as being the orchestral composer, but I think there's truly the pianistic art being displayed in this particular work. the great, tremendously dramatic middle sections. Please do not play it too fast. It becomes very, very difficult, and it should be within the same tempo. And I've heard it pounded out. He writes sempre forte, and it sounds awful. And I can't believe that anyone would want to play this way. You have to shape it. So and so forth. But I think that's vitally important that you make music out of this and do not just pound it out, even though you see a sempre forte. You know, this is absolutely, the shape of the line has to be expressed as beautifully as any piece of music. So I would not just pound it out, and it should not sound ugly. Beautifully done. Anyway, he goes to his tenutos and his fortissimos, which are so important as well. Try not to play too fast. Try to articulate. You have to practice it slowly. Try to articulate each triplet figure. Try to find the right fingering, yes. This you work through the entire passage. Once again, it builds up to this beautiful fortissimo, yes? The forte and the tenuto. And I would do it with very, very, very little pedal in order to create the clarity of the line and the beauty of the triplet. And then, of course, you have the fortissimo. And then, of course, the contrast when he brings in the A-flat major pedal. But he takes the pedal off in this piano. And he comes down to beautiful, once again, the pianissimo. And of course, the great painter of tones. Which, you know, I believe that one of the geniuses of the piano. And the fact that he could actually hear these colors and the use of the pedal as an instrument of such beauty. And once again, it's revolutionary in the history of music and certainly in the history of piano writing. here you have again, let me do it again, and you have the motive. But it just briefly mentioned it. And then a 14. Once again, the dominant ninth. Marvelous. So I use the hand in order to get enough sound to really play the fortissimo. And then so I divide it up in order to get the clarity. Yes? So it's very difficult, and try not to use so much pedal, otherwise you don't get the clarity. Have the subito pianos, which are so vitally important, creating a tremendous dramatic effect. And of course the sforzandi, which are so important to Beethoven's line. I don't know any composer that beat out his dominant ninth like this. as the height of drama. Fermata. Once again, from the fortissimo to the pianissimo, the contrast, the obviously use of the pedal. The entire range of the instrument, the decrescendo, creating a tremendous excitement, a sense of drama, a sense of genius. And of course, the coda, one of the great codas of the pianistic art, which I'll be happy to demonstrate. And then he starts forte with piano. He pedals through this. And then, of course, he lets the pedal off. He's moving into the forte. To the fortissimo. To the forte with a piano, and then holding the pedal to the pianissimo, fortissimo, fortissimo. This use of the pedal, no pedal, pedal, no pedal, fortissimo, piano, fortissimo, piano, fortissimo, piano. Dramatically using the pianistic availability of the tools. Rarely does Beethoven use the three pianos, but in here he goes from pianissimo to three pianos. Extraordinary how he does this. I think it's important that you see where the pedal comes off here. Here. It comes back on at this point. I do 5/4. It might be easier to do 5/5. Liszt actually makes both hands legato. In this particular case, Beethoven does not really write slurs over the right hand, only the left hand. Liszt prefers to play both hands legato. The fortissimo is extremely difficult. You have to I would practice it very slowly and get the slow. Once again, how you practice this is basically how you're going to be playing it. Also articulate this détaché. To get the proper articulation and get your foot off the pedal here. Once again, pedal, no pedal. Pedal. And then this is the great moment where which I find very, very difficult. There are two schools where you actually do. I myself have discovered on some pianos where the action is so thick. Obviously on Beethoven's piano the action was very shallow and very light, so he could actually easily and it shouldn't be loud because he writes pianissimos. How do you do this? I do this in two hands, and then I divide the chord in the two hands. And then you need to do the crescendo. So on. Both Schenker and many, many pianists have recommended putting it into the two hands. Anyway, the beautiful effect, similar to Opus 109, of the consistency of the trill and the pianissimo. So how do you do this? And of course, within the pedal, minor, A flat. So the pedal helps prolong the sense of the trill. I stop the trill and do 2-3 in order to articulate. Once again, the beauty of fortissimo piano. And of course, no pedal. Beethoven continues the pedal all the way to the end. A lot of pianists go up, 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 up. But I'll play it both ways. You decide what is best. Or you're holding the pedal up. Which is better? Thank you very much.